Right, this is for my friend Anita, and she sent me something and a drawing she'd done, and said it's practice. With more practice, I'd get there. She said. My response was stop drawing. And I wasn't being cruel. I was just trying to make the point that a lot of people fall into this. Anita's got skills. You can see she's got some coordination, dexterity kind of relationship skills. But people get into this idea that it's about outlines. I'm going to draw this guy. I'm going to try and leave him in the shot if I can. If you want this image, it's an Instagram thing. I don't know how I can do that. If I can put a link in below, I will. But I'm not sure legally how you do that. If that's okay. But anyway, it's on Pinterest. You'll find it on Pinterest. Yeah, so a lot of people do there's the mechanics that do that and do that. They're looking for this and they're looking for this and they're looking for that. We do the mechanics side of things. Then you get the people that will do the outline of things, doing the basic outline of stuff. Obviously not as freehand as that. It'll be more like that. You know what I mean? This is what happens. This concept and this whole. So it gets to an eye, for instance, and it'll be an outline around an eye, and then if there's mechanics involved in it, they'll be too busy trying to work out where the actual eyeball is and where it sort of sits behind the socket and all that kind of thing. It's drawing. That's what drawing is. But for me, it's making marks that capture what you see, that's driven by the way you feel about what you see. So you can't help but look at this face and be joyful. It's got a kind of, a smile without a smile kind of face. And there's lots of textures going on, and you can see all this stuff here. What fun we're going to have with all this. So I sort of got, your tonality of stuff there. And the contrast. Look at that. They've got dark light. This is the whole composition of the face, as shapes, is what intrigues me. It's just a great face to draw. But not draw, if you know what I mean. So it is about seeing the shape. So first of all, the one thing that's similar to, first of all, I'd just say that this is not the right or wrong way to draw. This is just a way to draw. And for me, it was, what's the shortest route to be able to do this? What's the easiest? Like I've said before, lazy and impatient, that's me. So what's the shortest route to capture this face? And if you're doing live, this is the thing I was thinking about, live and freehand. All at once kind of thing. The comparison between that and the guys that will take a photograph, put a tracing on the canvas and colour it in, the miles apart, the worlds apart. It's like it's a different kind of thing altogether. There is so much safety in the production of things, even down to this mechanicking of things. There's so much safety in it because it's a calculation. And I'm not risk averse. So I don't care how it turns out. But people really are concerned that it's perfect every time. So, as I said, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go through the basics of what I do, and I'm going to the camera's just going to be playing up a bit. So. The first thing for me is, which is similar to other things, is let's get an idea of where things are going to lie. The sort of general position of things. That's all we're going to do. And I just need these points as anchors for everything else, so that everything else can be then built around it. So it's like putting markers down. So once the markers are down, which is kind of where I am now, I can then worry about building the shapes around them.
So it's a bit close for me to observe it. So I'm trying to, because one of the things I would say about doing this, particularly with freehand and the method, the way that I do it, you need to be as far away as possible, arm's length from the subject, from the your working area, because you need, you know that thing of suggestion and implication thing. You need to be able to suggest and imply to yourself, so that you can then take part in that process. So you won't get bogged down by doing that, drawing. So once things are roughly where they should be, let me just get my eye in, and then I can work out where I want to put things. But once things are anchored, the next thing is the shapes. But it's just finding shapes that define the elements. It's finding the shapes that define the elements, and it's not really specific. It's not accurate. It shouldn't be accurate. It's just there's a mark there, there's a mark there, and there's a mark there. I'd also say that it's important that the medium you're using allows this kind of freedom. The desire or need to apply pressure to something. In order to make a mark. I've swapped the charcoal mark. You probably tell that it's not sort of flowing so well. But that's kind of appropriate as to what I'm saying. What I'm saying is that the medium needs to have this unrestricted kind of application. It doesn't want to feel like you have to, like you do with, say, graphite. If you get cheap graphite, cheap paper, you're going to struggle. You're going to have to press hard on things, and it's just makes the whole thing more difficult. What you need to be doing is just flowing as you investigate the face. You need to be the marks just need to flow. They can't be difficult to make. So that's one of the things. The other thing is that you need a full range of tones, because you're going to describe something tonally more than you are going to be describing it as in a linear way. But you need the full extent of the full range of tones to be able to do that. You can't be worrying about how to make things darker, or because you see things to be darker. The charcoal's playing up again. But you can't. It has to work with you. That's the thing. A lot of the times with charcoal, and I say this with a lot of people using charcoal, is that charcoal does the amazing things. Sometimes you've no idea what it's doing. Because I use these irregular shaped pieces, and they've got a tendency to play up, like you've just seen. Their mark making is inconsistent, which is a good thing, because it stops the overworking of things. It also has a kind of a serendipitous feeling to it as well. So things do happen which you didn't mean to happen, but they nevertheless, as long as you're aware of what's happening and what you can see, and you're prepared to accept those things without having a hard and fast outcome in mind, you can take advantage of that. And as I say, that's the thing about charcoal. It does things that you don't really. If you see people using charcoal and it's controlled, they're not getting the best out of charcoal. What they're doing is it's a linear thing. They've just learned to produce in a certain way. You'll see it all the time with charcoal artists, and it's blowing the charcoal off and blowing the charcoal on again, and using the brush and everything else, all that kind of stuff. It's contrived and deliberate. You end up with just the same as if you've done a linear outline and coloured it in. And if you look at what AI is doing at the moment, it does exactly what these people do, and better. I saw something this morning which was, it was just, you know, the guys that do the photocopies of faces, it was doing that. You just put a picture in and it did exactly that, just like the, you know, in the same way, the same smoothness and all the rest of it. Frightening. So you don't want that. You want the thing about what makes us special is that we make mistakes, right? That's what makes us special. And what we need to do, we need to embrace the wrongness of things, because that sets us apart from the machines. So whatever marks you're making in response to, if they're not 100% perfect, that's fine. But as long as they are a response to what you see, as long as they are driven by what you feel, it will always work. It will always work. It won't. It only doesn't work when you're trying to draw, when you're trying to put outlines around things and then colour it in. That's when it just relies on development of skill. And the skill development thing is a long road. And by the time you get to the end of that road, AI is doing it. Thank you very much. So there's nothing. What makes it special? What you've learned this thing that a machine can learn. That's not good, is it? But as I said, this using charcoal in a way that magnifies its kind of inherent disobedience, because it doesn't always work. Charcoal, like, I mean, I'm probably a unique in that the charcoal I use is inconsistent, and it will as you can hear it, sometimes it's scratchy, sometimes it's not. So that's the thing, and in a way I'm lucky that it does that, because one of the things about drawing in this way is presence, because when you're like trying to meet a specific outcome, so therefore you engineer it or you draw it precisely, you have an outcome, and an outcome in mind, a style, a standard, or whatever, quality, a level of skill. You have all that in mind, but you don't really need to be present, literally present to it, observing what's happening, what's developing, because that's sort of given. You've decided what it's going to be, and you're using the tools, the mechanics, the engineering skills that you've learned. You're using those to manifest what it is that this drawing will become. So you don't really need to be present, observing what's happening. You don't need to do that. It's as I say, it's a given, but the skill level of doing that is immense. That's the thing. It's one of those things, and everybody, you if you go on any of these groups, I had a discussion recently about skill being a dominant factor in what you do and whether or not it's a good thing. And to most people it is. It's how they define what they do. Look at how skillful they are, is what they'll say about. So, and people will feed into that. It's skill. It's always about skill. If you look at any of the academic approaches to this, it is skill. They help people to develop their skills. People practice skills. Practice doing things in a certain way. And then techniques, and someone said, I made this comment about how people, artists should be able to use any medium, and they should. You kind of get up to speed quickly, and you just make it work the way that you work. You get the best out of the medium and all that sort, and that's what it should be. But some people believe that you must practice using that medium. And there's the danger, that's because what you're going to do, you're going to practice using the medium in the way that people use the medium, not in the way you use it, because that's completely not right. You've got to learn to use the medium the way that you're supposed to use the medium, and that doesn't sit right with me somehow. I don't think that's what artists do. They just pick up a piece of dirt or a twig and they make a sharp point with it and start scribbling in the ground or drawing on the walls, and I think that kind of presence that's required for that, because you do it. You do examine as you're doing it. You're examining what's happening. You're examining, is this doing what I wanted to do? Is it can I feel the subject? You're doing that all the time, or you should be. But people don't. It's a production. It's a production. I'm at the colouring in stage kind of thing. But this is the problem, say, with what Anita's got. So Anita's got this thing of she can draw. There's not about it. She can draw, but that's not really what it's about. It's I suppose most people could learn to do that with enough time. It's a practice thing, and that's what people tell you: practice, practice, practice. But the thing that makes it special, that when we do this, is the way that we respond to something, and the marks that we make are a response to what we feel about that subject. But at the same time, you have to be alive to what the marks are doing. So if you've got a medium that is a little bit temperamental, this one's settled down now. But if you've got, it's like I've tamed it. I should do another video about taming charcoal, taming the charcoal. Is that not a name of a play? A famous play, I think, as well. But this is the thing. It's if the moment you're making marks isn't observed, and it's not just about getting things in the right place either. If the moment you're making the marks isn't observed, i.e., that in this instance, say for instance, I go through locations of anchors, develop the tones. As I'm developing the tones, I've got to be aware of how those tones are working, whether or not they're working. So it's all about, as I said, the being in the moment with it, and definitely with something like this. Namely because of what I said to start with, which is this sort of tonal extravaganza. You can see there's just masses of tonal changes and undulations and everything. I mean, the beard is a typical example of how not to draw. It's really a case of lots and lots of different shading and tones and all these things that integrate and balance. So you can't not be aware of that. You can't get to the stage where I'm going to colour it in now, and then at that point I'm going to then worry about the tonal balance. Not with doing it this way. You have to worry about the tonal balance right from the start. So as you're applying the tones, you're assessing their effectiveness. It's primarily to find the shapes. It's nothing to do with the tones. But it's as you're finding the shapes, you're giving the shapes the form, which is the tone. So that it's a single process. It's not a stage process. Now I'm going to go to this stage. So what happens with this way of working is that the drawing evolves really quickly. So and you get and what's nice about that, as it evolves quickly, you get the opportunity to say, well, that's enough. As I said, impatient and this is why I do it. Impatient and lazy, because I'll get to a point where I've done enough to capture this face. I don't need to do any more. I don't need to make it any more detailed. I don't need to fix the tones in any way. I'll get to a point where that happens because of the evolutionary approach. I mean, if it wasn't evolution, I couldn't do that. I'd have to say, right, I'm at the stage now and I need a second layer of whatever. People drawing layers with charcoal, I have no idea how that works, but that's what they do. So I don't. That's not how it works for me. And as I said earlier, this is not the right way to do it, and it's not the wrong way to do it. It's just my way of doing it. But it's just that it's effective for me, and that's the thing. I can't explain it any better. It is really just what works for me, and I think it works for other people as well. I've been in. I don't do it so much now, but I've been in live lessons with people, and literally within 2 hours, less than 2 hours, they've drawn a fantastic portrait. But they came with basic skills. But their skills were traditional kind of. I'm going to put a line around it and then I'm going to colour it in kind of approach. That's what their skills were. So they had dexterity. Is what they had. Observation-wise, they hadn't learned to see, and their seeing was not questioning seeing. That's the other thing. I think questioning seeing is a different kind of, so, responsive observation, as we say, which then becomes the deliberate observation. Deliberate observation is more questioning than responsive. Responsive is just literally that. You're just going to respond to what you see. But as you get further down the road and into a point where you're starting to, like I'm doing now, this is deliberate observation. So it's a different thing. Up until this point, you saw how it just evolved from my response. Now the deliberate observation now is rectifying everything. It's looking for, or I'm looking for, precision of things. Not necessarily to make things more detailed or more exact, but just to clarify things. I think that's probably one of the other things about the suggestion application. You've got to clarify with accuracy. The Sargent thing of accuracy, efficiency, and economy. You've got to say that line. The famous. I keep saying this every time, and I never show anybody or dig it out. I threaten to, but I never do. But there's one where he drew this guy with silver rimmed glasses or wire rimmed glasses, and there's just this hint of a line around it, and people have copied this technique. You'll see people doing this. You'll see professionals doing this, but it was just enough. It was suggesting and implying, but it was the accuracy at which he did it. That's what I'm aiming for when I get to the more observational side of things. I'm also tweaking the tones, so I'm because it's a purely observational thing, and I'm starting to just sort of rectify the tone, the tone of balance things. But I'm also at a stage where, in theory, I could stop because I've caught the face. So I won't stop because I just like doing it. But I can slow down. I can start to refine things. But I'm not now. I'm not worried about whether or not I'm going to lose it because I've caught it already. So I don't really need to worry too much about where's the likeness. You know what I mean? It's there. The thing is about likeness. The likeness is derived from the life force. So feel the subject, you'll draw the subject, if you know what I mean. It doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be an accurate copy of a face, but if it feels like the subject, chances are it will look like them. And if it doesn't look like them, nobody will notice because it feels like them. You know what I mean? So it's back to this suggest and imply. So suggest and imply the character of this face, and that's sufficient to call it a likeness. Even if you don't capture the life force, if the character's not in your portrait, then it ain't a portrait. It's a copy of a face. You can call it a portrait if you like, but it's not a portrait in the sense that it portrays this individual. It portrays or captures their likeness, and that's all it does. That's not really what let AI do that, or a photograph do that. That's not really what we're trying to do. We're trying to convey the essence of this character. So it doesn't really matter about the smoothness of your lines and the accuracy of the lines, so long as it conveys the character that that's of this face, of this subject. That's all that matters. Anyway, I'm going to leave it at that because I think it's done enough to explain exactly. I'm going to just tidy up the beard a little bit so there's more of this inner tone, that mid-tone in there. One of the things about this charcoal, I would say as well, on this dodgy paper, is that there is an element of when I blend it or push it around, it does tend to look a little bit wash-like. which gives it a different kind of feel. And all of this down here needs that greyness and smoothness of tone. But I'll mix. I don't try not to blend too much. As I said before, I don't want to be using the sponge on a stick or whatever to try and get things too smooth. I do use the sponge on a stick to rectify. So and that's one thing I do as well. Tapping off is a big thing. So tapping off, really, when a tone gets too strong, I'll tap it off just to knock it back. Or if there's something that shouldn't be there, I'll tap it off. But as I said, it's caught the essence of the character. So it really is. From now on, it's even more fun, if you like, because now I can relax and I can just tweak it here and there, and improve the densities here and just make that a little bit darker over the top of there. And none of it's drawing though. So I'm going back to what I'm started talking about. None of it's actual, drawing in the sense that there's an outline and there's a shape that's being defined. You know what I mean? So that's it. I just wanted to basically, this is for you, Anita, just to say that you've got the skills. You're just trying to draw too much. But those two things, I think, are the most important things. The desire to draw in the traditional way is a problem, because that's how you think it should be. But the other one is the tools. Drawing with a pencil, drawing and trying to create the tonality, build the tones with a pencil is a nightmare. Especially if you're on dodgy paper as well, it's a nightmare to try and do that. So don't do that. Get yourself some soft pencils and even some coarse paper, so that it makes the pencils even more easy to use. Or use charcoal, although people tend to be frightened of charcoal for no reason. It's just that you lose control, and a lot of people don't like not having control. In fact, as I said earlier, I want the lack of control in the medium, so that it can do the things, the magic that it will do without any effort. Because that's another thing as well, is that I said about being lazy and impatient. If the charcoal can create tonality easily, then I want it to do that. I'm going to let it do that, because it makes the job so much easier to get to where you want to be with it. Anyway, as I say, I'm just going to be fiddling with the beard, I think. Only looking at the tones of the beard, because that's the other thing about drawing beards, is just draw the tones that define the shapes within the beard. You can worry about the fine lines later, the sort of wispy bits, but you can't draw a beard wispy right from the start, unless you're going to spend weeks on doing it, in which case I'll have fallen asleep by the time I get anywhere near finishing a beard. So I'd never embark on that kind of execution. But anyway, like I say, it's there as at the moment, and I'm just going to add a bit more twinkle and a bit more mid-tone sort of structuring around here, but not much. I still want to keep that flow around that. Anyway, right, I love you, leave it, and hopefully, Anita, that helps.